Yo,
It's just me setting everything up for him. He'll be up in a little bit.
oh, cool. How you doing?
All right. Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. Can you just pass on? I'll be on in about 10 minutes.
I'll let him know.
Perfect. Problem solved. Thank you.
All right.
Hello, everyone. Hello, anyone watching? Hey, out there. Hello, YouTube. Uh-oh.
Stay. Hello.
Hey, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm all right, hanging in there.
Is this?
What? I haven't talked to Sec yet.
Oh, is
so.
this? Oh, okay.
We're live technically.
We're
but
not
that's
live
just-
yet, are we?
No, we're live. We've always been live, but nobody's
Hello.
watching. There was one listener, now one viewer. Now there's none. So I don't really care. I'm not really too particular about when I go live. What's going on?
Okay,
Seth?
gotcha.
We can hear you.
Yeah, we
I think we
stream
can hear you.
live. We stream live like immediately, but this won't be in the final like public recording.
Gotcha.
Sometimes we start talking, and it makes it into the thing, but not like this, obviously. That's a very soft opening.
Can you hear that wind? Can you hear the wind through the mic?
Oh, dude, wind has been so bad. No, I can't hear wind on your end, but it's been so bad here. I just didn't work. I ride a motorcycle though. It's a really small motorcycle, and it's been fine, but I don't think I would have driven it down to towards the beach, which is where
It's been like 50 miles an hour,
working.
40, 50 miles an hour since like midnight last night.
Okay, well, it's not that bad here, but we're getting a bit of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I went out. We slung 10-ton of rock today, put
Oof.
10 tons out, and we were trying to fabric with the wind blowing. It was a fucking nightmare.
Oh my God, yeah. I would have had to. So the stuff I had planned on doing today, most of that work was by the beach, like in some cases on the beach itself, but in several cases close enough to get sand, like in the general vicinity. Yeah, I wasn't going out there in this kind of wind. So either it's going to be blowing from the bay and blowing from the bay, from the beach area, or it's going to be blowing in the opposite direction, but that would just be blowing in the opposite direction. I need to blow stuff, especially at one place. So there's just no chance of doing any of that work. Yeah. I hate working anywhere where there's sand.
I probably
anywhere.
wouldn't have worked, but it's supposed to rain like fucking Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday next week. I got shit to do.
Yeah. Only thing I'm saying is right now during Ramadan and I'm fasting and everything, I'll take as many days off as I can for the weather because I don't have. Back in the day, I would just have PTO. I would have PTO, and I would just take a bunch of PTO. So I used to have 2 jobs, and I'd be taking PTO from both of them. Sometimes they'd overlap, and sometimes they wouldn't. But I'd be getting paid, and I wouldn't be working, so I'd be happy. But that's not really an option here. So if I can just take days off because of the weather and kind of fudge it a little bit, that's fine.
I couldn't honestly. I give it to you, man. I couldn't do what you do and not drink or eat.
This year is actually
the busiest fucking part of the season.
Yeah, this year is actually the sweet spot because it's like 11 days earlier every year. This year is the sweet spot. I'm not getting particularly hungry or thirsty, just because of the temperatures in the right area, right zone.
Yeah, it's not like
I haven't been working like crazy.
Yeah.
I'm not sweating, and I'm not like cold, so cold I'm burning a bunch of calories either, which is never the issue. It's always thirst, and I'm not sweating. Right. I'm not in a coat where I'm sweating either. You know what I mean? So it's actually like really good.
Right. What's up, Ray? What are you doing?
Not much, man. Just hanging out.
I hear animal.
Oh man, you can hear him. We put him in the back bedroom, so hopefully it could be worse. No, that's Dennis.
Fine. Oh, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, we got some farm cats, and like he doesn't try to eat them or anything, but anytime he sees them come around through the windows, he goes like ape shit.
Hey, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing around my farm?
Yeah. Basically.
All right, well, you got a hard stop at 6:30, Penguin?
Yes, I do, definitely.
That's perfect.
Way 5 is going to work for me. Yeah.
You got to leave earlier than that, right?
No, 6:30 is perfect.
Okay. All right, let's rock and roll.
All right, let's do it.
Three, two, one. All right, folks, welcome back to the Agora Podcast. It's Penguin here. It's your home for agorism, localism, anti-authoritarianism, and radical decentralist topics. I'm here with my co-host Sek Magora, and we're recording as usual with a cool guest of ours. Sek, if you don't have any announcements, take it away with our guest.
No announcements. Well, today we're bringing our homie on, Ray from the Let's Make Some Shit podcast. And funny thing, I have a calendar for the podcast with all the guests, and Ray was on the calendar as the phonetic spelling of the way my daughter says her name, which made me laugh. So I can't say it here, but it's funny. So Ray, welcome. What's going on?
Not much, man. Thanks for having me back on. Excited to talk about some shit.
Talking about some shit. So what we're doing, this is for anybody listening, this is another Women in Anarchism. This is another part to our Women in Anarchism series. So Ray is going to be the second part in that series. Let's get right into it, man. Like, tell us about you, your backstory. Like, how did you come to anarchism? What did you believe before that, and that kind of stuff? Go.
All right. So I was born on February. Just kidding. So my parents were both Republican, and neither of them were particularly political, though. Like it just didn't come up a lot. So politics weren't really a big part of my young adult life. And then, you start to get a little older and, rebel against your parents and everything and be like, yeah, I don't want to be like my parents, I don't want to be a Republican. And so I guess I soft identify as maybe a Democrat. But I mean, to be honest, like back then, I didn't really even know what either of them was, and nor did I really care. And if you've heard me on any of the other times you've had me on, I'm sure a lot of your guests know that I struggled with addiction, in my younger years, and that just kind of totally consumed my life, during that whole period of my life. And again, like, not only did I not really care about politics, but like I did not care about what was going on in the world, like really at all. And so I did go to college, and graduated and everything. And so I guess I started down, I had that kind of left influence and maybe picked up some things. And through my years in and out of treatment facilities and kind of in, NA meetings and taking that victim mentality, it definitely was kind of, and my eyes were kind of starting, my life was kind of starting to go down the right direction, and some of these things were starting to become, a little bit more important in my life. And I definitely started going down, the Democrat path, thinking, like, oh, we got to help all these sick, poor people. And, and it definitely kind of, had that attitude that they have, I'm always embarrassed to say that that's, where I was headed, but I'm talking about. But so, but I still, like, I didn't really ever care. And so then my husband's sister started going to school for economics, and actually, like, I think they're like friends with Bob Murphy. And so through her, she kind of started influencing, recommending readings and things to read for my husband. And, it kind of, he started on that path, a little before I did, because it took a while of listening to him rant and rave about how much he hates the government, every day, before I kind of really started listening and opening my eyes and, paying attention, and then kind of started to pick up some of those concepts and things for myself and taking responsibility for those things and implementing them into our lives. And it's just kind of been, started out as libertarians, and then it was not long after we kind of started identifying as anarchists. And it was even another short period before we decided that, agorism is kind of really the lifestyle that we have been living through the homestead and, other things. So that's how we kind of ended up as agorism. And so I would say that Dag was kind of a big influence, because I feel like he was kind of right ahead of me in all those things and kind of like showing me different things and different people to listen to. But it kind of always has been big for me to interpret things kind of the way I see them and not kind of fall into one way of anarchy or agorism than another person. And I know like in the libertarian community, there's kind of different groups, and sometimes there's issue between the different groups. And I just really try to stay out of that. And just kind of keep looking for people who are my people that are out there kind of doing the things, like y'all and resonance, and so along that journey, kind of started picking up new skills and also kind of getting out of addiction and kind of start picking up hobbies again and things that I enjoy doing that I just could never find the time or mental capacity to really focus on, in the past. And kind of really developing a thirst to learn new things. And then, once the, scamdemic hit and it kind of really shattering faith and just that society will be the way it is in the near future, and kind of realizing how important it is to learn some of these basic skills that maybe our parents or grandparents and earlier, all that information was just kind of passed down, and these were things that everybody just knew that, over the last 100 years, we kind of just lost touch with and just kind of, learning how to do those things. And so when Resonance and I decided to start a podcast, kind of basically teaching some of these things that we've learned to other people that, might be interested in learning some of these things and just kind of be an example. And stop me if I'm rambling.
No,
But
you're good.
just
Keep rambling. This is an interview of you. Go
Okay.
ahead.
You're the guest.
All right.
You're the guest. Yes, go
I'm
ahead.
gonna be honest.
You're
I thought it was
stopping
gonna
me
be.
from rambling, so it's good. Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. I thought it was a panel, and I wasn't gonna have to ramble about myself. But so anyway, so yeah, we started the podcast, and a lot of times, we talk to people and see if they want to come on, and they're like, "Oh, well, we're not experts," and we get that a lot. And it's like, well, neither are we, but that's how we learn. And
Neither am
I
I.
don't know. Yeah, it can be intimidating to people to, maybe an expert might use words that maybe you wouldn't as a beginner even learn until down the road. And, people might not be ready for that level of whatever the project is. For some of them, of course, we just put out an episode on making butter and, any child can do that. But, a lot of people don't think about maybe making their own butter.
I know you churn it.
Yeah, basically.
I have made butter like a couple of times when I was a kid, but that was about it. No, I tell everybody who will listen that you and Resonance have probably the most important podcast out there, and there needs to be like 100 more of those. But
I never even thought to look to see if any existed, but I mean, even if there were, I mean, the best we can hope for is just our sphere of people who would be interested in, the agorist twist on a lot of the things we say. A lot of maybe normal people, but might not even be interested in it. So, I mean, we're not really striving to change the world. At least I know I'm not, but I've said this before, I learn and I solidify these things in my mind the more that I talk about them and the more that I teach them to other people, it helps me out. So, there's almost kind of like a selfish aspect to doing it. But I don't know, like I was thinking about it, and so you had me on for the show, Women in Anarchism, and it's such like I don't know, kind of an honor, because I definitely don't think of myself as somebody out there like making big changes, in the agorist community or really in general. But I think that that's how people kind of start out. And the more that we just spread these ideas and show people by example, how to live this life, and that it's not all about, anarchy isn't about chaos and disorder, that there is order and, purpose and community and just kind of living this life. And, I guess social media is a big aspect to it, because that's kind of how we all communicate and how all these interactions start out, but so kind of like using social media to just make that community stronger, and maybe I kind of not belittle, but minimize, what we do, because it is important. But I guess maybe sometimes like, well, I don't know, I'm not an expert either. Who wants to listen to me?
Yeah, I think your podcast could potentially have like a wider reach than ours. They can definitely have a reach outside of like small circles. I mean, I hope our podcast gets out into the wild as much as possible. But I think your podcast definitely has could have pretty wide appeal if people like the personalities and presentations, and I think the topics are a lot more appealing than just inside these kind of more niche groups. Only limiting factor I would say is that maybe some of the stuff might be lend itself to a more visual form, because you're doing things and everything. But like I always say, I love podcasts because I can listen along while I'm doing something, while I'm driving down the road, riding my motorcycle, doing all kinds of stuff, and that they really don't have time to watch a whole ton of videos. So I think honestly, I think for somebody who wants to learn stuff, get into stuff, and we've talked about from the very beginning, doing things, getting into craft hobbies, not hobbies even, but getting into crafts and do it yourself stuff. That's a thing that for various reasons I think is going to, has remained popular over time, and has remained more popular, I would say. I don't know if it's become more popular or if it's revived, but it's like, I'm sure it has with actually the internet and YouTube and the ability to have information disseminated. But it's like, yeah, people are going to have, hopefully, as technology advances, more free time, more opportunities to learn and do things. I really think so. I mean, there's plenty of things that I do because I could find out about them on the internet. Quite a bit of my life is that way, actually.
Yeah, and that kind of was making me think that, I mean, yeah, we are like a DIY podcast, but I don't know, I kind of like to think of it as like a motivational support podcast too, because I mean, we had Jeff Young of Shoot Tree Brewery on, talking to us about brewing beer, but I mean, that's a pretty complicated topic. And some of the things we talk about could easily do multiple episodes on, such as soap making or, the bread. We've had 2 episodes on making bread. And maybe somebody might not be able to be like, okay, I'm going to go listen to this episode and I'm going to go brew some beer. But just to kind of let people know that some of these things maybe aren't as difficult as they might think. And with the internet out there, just kind of like providing that motivation to get over that anxiety of learning a new skill and just doing it, and just knowing that other people might have failures, when they start out too. And then that's okay. And that's how we learn, and just to kind of keep trying. And maybe making your own potash is not your thing, but maybe some of these other projects are, and so, but it's kind of neat to do some of these things and just try it for yourself, and especially if you have kids. And I will say that also, I just want to shout out to all the anarchist mamas out there. And this kind of came up on a Facebook thing today. And so Dag and I kind of decided early on in our relationship that we weren't going to have children, that we decided that if we ever change our minds, we would adopt. And she was kind of saying that how people, like, how do you kind of deal with that feeling of realizing that you might not ever have children because you made that decision, and I had answered, and sometimes now meeting all these people in the anarchist community, that are doing homeschooling and unschooling and just raising just the smartest, like well-behaved children, is I don't know, it's just really inspiring and hopeful, provides a lot of hope for the future. And sometimes it makes me a little bit sad that I don't have somebody to kind of pass this information along to in that way, or to contribute to the future, of the liberty community, to continue to kind of like spread these messages. Um, so I
Well,
just
there's
want
more than
to,
one way to do that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But,
Go ahead.
being a mom and taking care of family, besides, you know, doing things for the community and taking care of a homestead or a business or whatever
Right.
it is, it's like, I don't know. And maybe it was just my struggle with addiction and the fact that most of my life I kind of struggled with feeling like I could barely take care of myself. How could I ever possibly take care of, another human being? And, I don't know. Sometimes I just feel like, but like you said, and there is always adoption, but I don't know, this kind of topic kind of straight, but I just really love seeing anarchist families. I just feel like, and I'm sure, people only post what they want on the internet, but they are just the happiest looking families. And when I meet them in person, they're just so well behaved. And I, I don't know. I mean,
I mean,
talking to normies
okay, so you don't see
nowadays.
the part where my 2-year-old daughter is running through the house naked and pooping on the floor and then stepping in it, and then you don't see those parts. You know
Right,
what
I know, but I'm
I
just saying, like, long term, they're growing up with parents that are, anarchists, and
mean?
you guys are still living by example, for your children. So they just, and people always admit, like, homeschool children, they're like a little different, and just actually seeing like, yeah, they're different, but they're different in a good way, and I don't know, I feel like I've been meeting more and more younger and younger people, in this community that, figured it out at a young age, and kind of sometimes it's kind of jealous, like, oh man, I wish that I just had someone come along to plant some seeds for me, and I was a little bit younger. And so I guess as often as we can plant seeds for other people, like, I don't know, I kind of stopped really trying to change people's minds about a lot of things in everyday conversation, because I just feel like
Same.
wasting your time and breath and energy on somebody who'll never listen. You could recommend books or, things to read until your face turns blue and they're just never going to change. But sometimes just planting seeds, and maybe one day something will happen to them and it might click, be like, hey, I remember you said this to me, or we were talking about this, and actually that kind of happened. So I started working a few nights a week bartending, and it was the place kind of near our house where we would go play poker on Wednesday nights in the bar. And then Corona hit and they stopped doing it. But right before that all hit, there was this young man who had just moved, and he was talking about how he wanted to be an FBI agent, or something, in criminal intelligence. And I was just like, kind of like talking to him and explaining to him on some things that were probably all very new things he never heard before. And then, coronavirus hit. We just kind of stopped going there for a few years, because that is kind of also where our lives kind of ramped up, because we couldn't go anywhere and focusing on more things around the homestead. But anyway, so I saw him again when I started working at this bar, and he was like, yeah, I remember you were trying to tell me, why I shouldn't be an FBI agent. And I don't think he is necessarily going that route anymore. And whether it has anything to do with what I said or not, I don't really know, but I don't know. Maybe I made it so there's one less aspiring vet out there.
Well,
So
that's
one thing that
fucking
really
you doing
struck
the Lord's
me,
work.
one thing that really struck me is that you said you were introduced to libertarian ideas by a woman, um, which is pretty unusual. Also, it's very apropos to the topic of women and anarchism. Can you go and, I don't know, do you have any
Wait,
comment
what?
on that?
Yeah, sure. My sister-in-law, she is an amazing lady, and I would definitely, like I said, it was kind of through my husband, but definitely would attribute my journey to her and her husband. She met her husband in at school for economics, so that was very fitting. So
Okay.
both, played an influence on kind of helping us down this journey. And I will say other women in anarchy that have been a big influence on me. Well, number one, Resonance. I mean, God, I just love her. And I just definitely, our podcast wouldn't exist, if we hadn't met. Lily Forrester was a big influence on me in kind of starting my side hustle, the Willow's Gift, doing the portraits and the herbal medicine, and kind of really focusing on that, and a kind of a big influence to start working on kind of getting out of the rat race, quote unquote. I got to meet Amanda Rose a couple times, and just like, and that was just really cool because she's just like a really fun free spirit, and she's been a big influence in the community. But more recently, just, I don't know, the last however many years, my friends list has gotten more and more concentrated, and there's just so many amazing women, and all the amazing women that we've had on our podcast that are out there doing the shit they're passionate about, the things that we're talking about. you know I definitely, I will say it's just been, I don't know, almost like a little overwhelming for me. Like, I don't know, kind of emotionally, just this like support that I get from other women. Where when I was younger, I definitely struggled to make friends. I definitely didn't have, like a lot of girlfriends. I had a couple close ones, but I have always worked in industries where it's been mostly male, they're doing electrical kind of work, and well, I guess mostly that by that for a long time. Oh, and cooking in kitchens, mostly guys and everything. That I kind of always, in my younger years, like, oh, women are catty, I'll never get along with them. And I don't know, it's kind of made me realize, meeting all these like amazing anarchist women and how supportive they are, and just like loving, it's, I don't know, it's like almost like crave that now. And it's a good feeling to have close women friends, even if they do live all over the country, just knowing that they're there and we have these things in common. But it's a really big thing in our lives, and I think it's kind of been magnified by a lot of the events over the last couple of years, how important this community is. And, you know, like I said, just kind of living by example.
So I'm going to ask you, I asked Resonance the same question, but I'm going to ask it to you here. Is the common perception is there's very few women anarchists, and it's predominantly a male space. But after seeing all of Resonance's friends and you guys have a community and all the people that you guys have brought on your podcast, I'm like, it seems like there's almost more women than men sometimes. But why do you think there is the perception that it is a predominantly male space or philosophy?
That's a good question. I don't know if I would agree. I that maybe that there's more women than men. I do probably feel like there's more men, but I feel like a lot of the women, maybe, or maybe it's biased or something. Like, I don't know, maybe my friends list, maybe I have focused more on adding women. I know there was a point where I was just like, I'm not adding more dudes, and I don't really have a problem with them like coming in and trying to like hit on me, or thirsty simps or anything like a lot of people do. But I feel like there's maybe definitely more than people think. And then I would go on further, maybe to say that there's probably a lot more people identify as libertarians than anarchists and agorists. And maybe a lot of the guys get stuck into that category. I don't know. I kind of stopped maybe really caring or knowing even necessarily what people on my friends list identify as, whether it's libertarian or anarchist or agorist. There's a few that I do. And I would say a lot of those women more are in the anarchist or agorist category than the libertarian, but I kind of generally lump all those three generally together. Did that make any sense?
No, for sure.
I don't like to
something.
distinguish too much, personally, because I think the lines don't. They're lines, but I don't think the lines that necessarily are drawn. I don't think the lines are necessarily drawn along the same. I don't say lines again. I don't want to think the lines are drawn along the same distinctions as necessarily the words are. So a lot of, in other words, there are categories that people are doing based on words, and I just don't think like the people's actual lines, if they're even need to be divided or categorized, necessarily go with those words, because people use words in lots of different ways, as we talk about all the time.
I totally agree, and I will say that I feel like in general we all have the same goal, which is freedom, and that a lot of those lines or separations maybe are things people are getting hung up on specific things, like, abortion or, you know, uh, policies or again, but that kind of all just because we're living in this political world right now and we aren't living in, an agorist or anarchist society. So we're kind of still playing by these rules and things that people are getting hung up on. But if we're able to just like wipe the slate clean and say, do you want to live free or do you want to live as slaves? I think most people would generally choose freedom. And it just gets right down
Yeah,
to it.
I mean, I think that freedom is very broad,
Yeah,
personally.
exactly.
So
Yeah, I was saying, yeah.
and people are entitled to people are entitled to have differences, and that's perfectly fine with me. I'm pretty broadly tolerant of a lot of ideas. Doesn't mean I don't have opinions on them. I will judge you,
Right.
but
Yeah.
I'm broadly tolerant of differences because it's very important that we have those differences and not, totalitarianism, which is what I'm really against. After all is said is done, the one thing I do know I want to abolish and like right away is totalitarianism. So I am probably tolerant of differences and people mind the differences, but not in some universalist. Oh, we'll just all be cosmopolitan liberals. That's pie in the sky fantasy. You know what I mean? I think we are entitled to live freely and have our differences with each other and be as friendly and as you know standoffish and everything as we want to be. But yeah, yeah. As far as labels and ideology is concerned, I think that's the world doesn't really run on ideology nearly as much as people on Twitter think.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to go back to something that you said earlier, and it's just kind of an aside, but so you mentioned you spent a lot of time doing drugs when you were
Hmm.
younger,
Yeah.
and so you weren't interested in politics. But so I guess my question is, and this is kind of not, I guess, relevant to the conversation, but it's interesting to me. Is so when I was doing a lot of drugs, we'd stay up till like 2, 3 in the morning, and we would talk about all kinds of wild stuff, the fucking big questions, what the meaning of
Yeah.
life, what were people's dreams and hopes, and like all philosophy, all kinds of like wild stuff. We weren't debating in politics too, but we weren't like debating policy per se, but just like bigger political questions, right? So
Yeah.
when you were partying as a kid, what did you guys talk about in those long nights? You know what I mean? I know you must have had them the same as I did, where you're up till 3 in the morning and you guys are just talking, 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 and what did you guys talk about then, if not
So
politics?
I will say that the first time I ever did ecstasy was with my brother. And I mean, I just remember that night like so clearly and I I don't know. I mean, I really felt like it brought us closer. I mean, at that time in my life, I kind of considered like my brother one of my best friends. He was, like a big influence on me and I really looked up to him. And I think it might have been the first time, like, that he maybe told me that he loved me, Besides, I don't know, like, I don't know. And I just remember those feelings of just feeling like really good. I think it was more just kind of like, they were generally positive things, you're with your friends just having a good time. But I don't know, maybe you had more intelligent friends than I did, but it definitely never went to politics. I'm trying to think now about what we did all talk about, and it was probably just all, local town shit and what was happening in all our lives and gossip, I'm sure. Definitely nothing meaningful.
Okay. Okay. 'Cause I was just trying to get your kind of general perspective at the time, like just because
Back
you weren't in the
back
politics.
then.
Yeah. I mean, you could still have like thoughts about
When I
life,
was doing, like, the fun drugs like that, I was still kind of young, and then
Yeah.
once, it turned into addiction, everything was just generally pretty sad, you know? Like, they weren't fun drugs anymore, it was, definitely not fun.
I know my experience with drugs is generally unique in the sense that it was like overwhelmingly mostly positive. So I have a hard time. I don't know.
But, like,
Um,
even, we did the addiction panel, and,
hmm,
like, I know I probably didn't get a chance to say everything the way I don't know, I say this every time I get, like, nervous for recordings, but, I even though I had that addiction and opiates basically, were killing me, I definitely am not against drugs. I definitely
hmm,
believe the war on drugs should be ended. And I feel like if that were to happen and there were, it was just a different time, that maybe so many addicts wouldn't exist in the first place, or people might take on that responsibility sooner because they're not being taken care of by the government, and being pushed on, by pharmaceutical companies and everything. Um, and
of
maybe
course, yeah.
just, more options to get help. But like, I don't know. I mean, I'm definitely not opposed to some of those fun drugs. I mean, I can still drink. We rarely get drunk. I had a glass of wine before the show to try and calm my nerves, but it doesn't make me go crazy where all of a sudden, some people it does. Alcoholics, sometimes they have one drink and that's it for them. They'll be gone for weeks, but that's not me, and I don't feel like addiction treatments and solutions can be blanket solutions and treatments, and that I feel like everything should, you know, be specific to that person and what triggers them, and that it takes a lot of hard work to kind of figure those things out, but there are ways to do it. And I know that I cannot touch opiates because that, like an alcoholic, like taking that first sip, if I were to use opiates, and if I do, I have to make sure that it is cut off immediately, because that could happen, but I smoke weed, and I've had therapists tell me that they have known more opiate or heroin addicts stay clean that smoke weed than ones that don't, and so I don't really think anything, in life is really just quite that black and white. There's, everybody's situation is different.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. It's there's very few one size fits all solutions to anything.
Mhm.
Um, so something that's interesting to me that I wonder if we'll notice a pattern as this series goes on, but um so re- okay, so Resonance was our first in the Women in Anarchism series for obvious reasons. And then she came from a social, like a, sort of social democrat,
Mhm.
help the poor kind of a mindset as well. Do you think that, okay, so I am guessing that you sort of drifted in that direction mostly out of like empathy, right?
Yes,
Do you,
definitely.
do you find that empathy also informs your attraction or perspective on anarchism as well?
Yes. Okay, so I don't know if you remember, like, I don't know, it was probably like around the 2016 election and that whole like Trump era and the whole toxic masculinity was a thing. I'm sure it wasn't the first person to think of this, but I don't know, I was thinking a lot about toxic empathy. And we had an old neighbor who we were, after we moved away, we were still Facebook friends with her. And she was like super hardcore liberal Democrat, blue hair, all that stuff, and some of this things that she would post would be like, after kind of going down this path, it kind of made me realize that like we still have those same goals, but there are different paths that can be taken to get to those goals that a lot of people have probably never even considered. And even if you kind of try to explain some of those, people are a lot of times unwilling to hear them or accept them as a possibility because it didn't come from a television screen or a politician, or something. I'm just some dumb recovering addict, so what do I know? Um, but it kind of, I still kind of even sympathize with her because I know a lot of people, I feel like a lot of it comes from that place of empathy, and I recognize that, but they just don't realize that there's other ways to achieve them. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. And honestly, like a lot of anarchists will try to say that they're all of their ideas they've come from sheer just logic, right? Sheer logic. And I'll be the first one to admit that a lot of my views on anarchism come from emotion or empathy, right? Like,
Mhm.
and sure, I have like logical arguments to justify my position as well, but the first, like
Mhm.
probably a lot of the same concerns that you had as a social democrat and now as an anarchist is it's just like you don't want to see people crushed and doing poorly, and you don't want people struggling and or going hungry, or and you don't want the environment fucked up, or and or animals tortured
Right.
or whatever the thing, like all of these things I very much feel, right? But there's
Mhm.
also I also recognize that the state is largely the source of a lot of the suffering we see in the world. So I understand it like
Exactly.
it cannot be our solution, right? So
Right.
I think I guess where I'm going with this is I think empathy and emotion play a much larger factor in our perspective on anarchism than most anarchists would like to admit.
I
Um,
totally agree. And also I think that the biggest thing that I feel like anarchists and agorists honestly have in common is actually open-mindedness, just open-minded to new ideas and the willingness to change your opinion when presented with better information. And so, thus, being able to admit that you were wrong. Like, I know, I mean, a lot of people aren't born agorists, unless both their parents, totally brought up that way. But I lost my train of thought. What was I saying?
Everybody's been changed their mind about something is what I think where you're going about that with that.
Oh yeah, and I don't know, maybe just a lot of statists, I guess, are kind of unwilling to ever admit that their side was wrong, or willing to change their ideas or opinions when presented with logical information that makes sense. And I know where I worked, it was a lot of Republicans, and they all get hung up on cops, and how, well, we need cops. It's like, well, there doesn't mean that there won't be rules, but they'd be agreed upon by everybody, and ma- you can't say that we know all the solutions, but I do know that the solutions and the system that we're in right now like doesn't work, and there's could be better ways, but people are unwilling to kind of entertain those ideas.
Yeah, I will say that I think open-mindedness is pretty common amongst anarchists and agorists, about not just politics but about anything. But
Yeah,
and also I've never been wrong about anything in my life, so you can take that back right now.
right.
Um um Just ask me. I'm always right. Shit, I had a question and now I lost it. Oh, okay. So, do you think, as a woman and an anarchist, do you think that being a woman, you might have a unique perspective about, um, well, anarchism, but also society at whole that maybe men don't share, don't have?
Wait, what was the question?
Do you think you have do you think you as a woman might have a unique perspective about anarchism or anything else that would be important or adjacent to anarchism?
Um, I don't know. Like I said, maybe this kind of goes back to what I was saying before about maybe mothers in anarchism maybe might have, or parents in anarchism maybe have a different perspective just because there's that whole side that you have dependent people on you, that are growing up in this world. But when I think of, at least for me personally in my life, I mean, I know Dag and I don't really adhere to a lot of gender roles or positions when it comes to things that need to get done around the house or the homestead. So, and I've never really considered myself a very feminine person either. So I don't know if I have anything maybe necessarily to
Well, okay,
share on
so
that.
no, you don't necessarily have to
You've
be a
been
feminine
wait a
woman.
minute. You've been making. Hold on. You've been making some cakes lately, have you?
I have. Oh,
Yeah, they looked. I
yes.
don't know if it's just because I'm fasting for Ramadan, but they look absolutely. I love carrot cake, so that's actually there's more to it than that. But they look absolutely delicious, and
Oh
that
my
seems
God, that
very.
carrot cake was
Not
so
everyone.
good.
Awesome. Yeah, I just thought of that, and also because I'm very hungry. But yes, you certainly have a knack for that, and probably other things. I
Yeah,
don't think
so
it's above women to be handy. Some are just handy at some things more than others most of the time. And you sound like you can do a lot of. You sound like you're a lot better than me at probably a whole lot of things that are stereotypically masculine. I don't know
well,
how
to
you're
be
good on
honest,
cars, but if you can
I'm
wire
kind of
stuff, then
just like
wow.
tapping back into that, and it's funny, like I made like a roast in the crock pot, and like Jay does a lot of the cooking, or like I don't know, he cooks a lot of the meat. Maybe I definitely do more of the baking, but I always like joke and be like, oh, I'm doing exceptional wifing today by making this pot roast, But I definitely, yeah, like I used to bake a lot with my mom when I was younger. And my grandma did a lot of baking. I used to like bake with her too. And so kind of only more recently have I started getting back into it. And that kind of ties into a lot of this too, because we both have a sweet tooth in this house, but we are working on eating better and introducing more animal fats and proteins into our diet and trying to eat less carbs. But like dessert is one thing that we love to eat, And so as we've been working on just eating cleaner meat, and cooking healthier, I was like, well, if I'm baking something, it's still going to be better than, the sleeve of Oreos that we're eating, or the Girl Scout cookies, or whatever, the box brownies off the shelf, And so, um, I don't know. I've been actually really loving the baking, and I've been like working on the perfect ice cream recipe. Our roommate has kind of brought home a lot of gadgets that his mom wasn't using anymore, and I've also been kind of trying to justify keeping some of these things in the house, like a pasta maker. So I've been making my own pasta. And I don't know, it seems like such a simple thing and maybe a lot to do for it, but I typically like to put a lot of butter on my pasta, when we just use, like, box pasta, and when I made it, it didn't even need the butter because it just had so much flavor. So, not only does it taste better, but it's better for you because I was using eggs, from chickens that we lay. So, it's just kind of continually taking another step. I feel like people can't just change their lives and go from the typical American lifestyle to, much freer and healthier lifestyle overnight. So it's just like a constant thing to keep what what can I do for myself today that I won't have to go to the store to buy? What can I do that will help me pay less taxes to large corporations and the government? And so maybe baking a cake seems like just such like a trad wife thing, but I consider that even a process in my journey to becoming more self-sufficient homesteaders, a, and a better wife, because maybe I do other things around the house. But like I said, Dag does a lot of the cooking, but he can't cook every night, and so I try to take some of that load off of him when I can, and he'll take some of my loads off of me when he can. And I think it's really important to have that kind of sense of teamwork when you're in a relationship and you both share those same kind of values, because those are your people. Those are your direct people, in your household. And then, then there's those people in your community that maybe you see every now and then. And then, there's the people further, like, maybe I get to see you guys this year, got to see you last year. Maybe once a year, you get to see some of those people that live all across the country, but it's constantly just like building those relationships. But the most important ones are the ones that, that are most closest to you. And I definitely wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for Dag and his support. And so, like I said, I try to do things that support him back.
Yeah, I don't think there should be any like strong pressure to going against what's coming natural to you to like adhere to a certain like surface level superficial gender roles, and just for the sake of appearances, I should say. Basically, when you're going about organizing your household and your family and everything, I mean, what comes natural to some people is different people to people, and you shouldn't, at the same time, you shouldn't fight certain things that might be in men's and women's nature, and things that are tendencies that men gravitate more to and women's gravitate more to. You shouldn't be too hard in any direction. I think everybody lives in sort of this gray area in between two extremes, and I think it's cool when people can find that balance. And even like like Sek always says, you can end up in a very trad looking circumstance, but without any kind of pretensions towards actually building your relationship in that way. It's not a meme. It's just you don't fight it, and you don't fight it and you don't fight against it, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was asking you like your perspective as a woman, I wasn't like you don't have to be super feminine to have a perspective as a woman. I wasn't like, oh, what color are your sundresses when you read Rothbard out in the wheat field? That's not what I was asking.
No, I know, but sorry, go on.
Well, yeah. So I'll try to illustrate my point here. Like, so there was something about your circle of friends where you started wanting more women around in your sort of circle of friends.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some kind of connection there is what I'm trying to drive at. Like, what's the vibe there? Like, what is different about the support of other women as opposed to like any other anarchist,
Okay, so I mean, anarchy really is like the natural state of things, and we just, I think, confuse it with politics. But I think that maybe my journey to anarchism has softened that side of me, and I guess maybe which is why I'm kind of desiring that more connection with other women, and maybe even my feminine side with the baking. And I do see this with a lot of other, I guess, just sadists. I don't know what they are, but women maybe in my day-to-day life now. And things like, and these are things that I used to say, it's like, oh, well, I don't have any women friends. Like, I'm more like, one of the guys. Or this is just a stupid example, but I'll tell you why in a minute, but just like even just like, oh, I don't like little dogs. I only like big dogs, because that's a more masculine thing. And I think a lot of women just kind of like really want to get away, like they're almost like ashamed to be feminine or a woman, but not like they're trans or gay or anything, but just maybe some women in society have done something in our eyes that like, oh, well, I don't want to be like that, like, and so I've always just kind of, I even have a lot of guys tell me like, oh, you're different, you're different. Like, where can I find a girl like you, and I know I'm just me, but now it's like, it's kind of like, that's still me, but you can still have those connections with women. And just because some women are maybe not the kind of women that I would look up to or want to be like, but there's all these other amazing women, aka women in the anarchist community, who don't treat other women or other people in that manner, which kind of maybe scared me away from that more feminine side. I don't know if any of that made sense, but I almost kind of feel more welcome by other women in the community, and I would say that is due to the anarchy aspect.
Yeah, no, that's right there is kind of what I was looking for. Not that
Okay.
specific answer, but that's
Yeah,
your
okay.
perspective on it. Anarchism as a woman, so to speak, is like, in some sense, like anarchism allowed you to find a better circle of women friends, I guess is where I'm going with that, or like support structure that is uniquely suited to women in some sense.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true? Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Do you think that the anarchist space is like like welcoming to women, or like generally speaking, not just your circle of women friends?
Um, in my circle of friends, I will say yes, but I think maybe broadly speaking, no. And I think this kind of goes back to what you were saying about asking if there was more women or men in the community. And I mean, guys are guys, and they're going to be going into people's DMs. Like I said, I personally maybe don't experience it as some other people let on that they do, Um, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought again.
Um. Oh, dudes are creepy. I think you were going somewhere with that. Like that.
Yeah, again, and it's kind of like I said, I mean, people post screenshots of things, and like I said, some of the things are kind of like super ridiculous, but at the same time I feel like maybe some of those women kind of are, I don't want to say asking for it, but maybe provoking, some things, but they're provoking maybe some things to make points, you know and I'm thinking of some specific examples, but like I said, I kind of try to keep things that I post generally, I mean, really honestly, pretty surface, until I really make an alt account. Like there's a lot of things topics I just don't really like to talk about. But maybe with my addiction, and I would like to talk about that more because I feel like it could help other people. But just like I said, kind of waste my time trying to change people's minds. So I post a lot of less confrontational things. And I feel like I'm kind of straying from your question, but I'm going to finish this thought. Um, that uh sorry, I forgot where I was going again. But so like I don't know, I guess more and more I kind of focus on things that really affect my life. And I know a lot of people are saying like, oh well, what are you doing to change the world? And a lot of these things maybe I don't know, I get stuck on whether I should speak up more on a lot of things or just really focus on myself. And like I said, kind of like living by that example. Um I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. I feel like I just babbled.
At the end of the day, I think the latter is the most useful. Um, just focusing and building up yourself and community and those closest to you. I think that has the added side effect of convincing some people, but I spending a lot of time trying to convince people of your ideas seems largely a waste of my time anyway. I don't know.
Yeah. So first of all, if I'm like struggling, if I'm just barely making it, if I'm like in some sort of privation or just poverty, or if I'm unhappy or not, I'm not in a stable situation, like that doesn't really reflect good on anything that I have to say or my worldview or like the philosophy that I go about living my life, so to speak. Especially when it's the more niche it is. And I just don't have the time anyway to devote to. I mean, that's, I guess, secondary to the fact that I just don't have the time to even devote to almost the motivation. It can almost launch you into a sort of depression or something, but also you
Yes.
just don't have the resources. Yeah, it's either the anxiety of trying to make it month to month, or the lack of resources to kind of put your ideas into action, which is ultimately what you want to do. I mean, debating somebody on social media, if anybody's still doing that these days, at this point, but like, there was a time where a lot of people maybe in this crowd that were in this kind of scene would debate people on social media, do a lot of that kind of stuff. In general, in politics, I think some of that is passe, but like that's free. That's free. You can do that all the time you want, and it might be, if you're doing a lot of it, it's a good indication that your time is not very valuable because you have a lot of free time. Well, maybe you're just lucky to have a whole bunch of free time, but uh, yeah, that's free. But actually putting your ideas into action, that takes resources and capital, and it takes you not to have the emotional fitness and not the anxiety of necessarily being in some place where you're kind of struggling. And I think that's really important, especially as me, as coming into a situation where I'm kind of getting myself on my feet in the self-employment world, and it's been tough. It's kind of starting from, not from entirely from scratch. I mean, I come from a middle class background. I have a little bit of, I'm not going to be, I didn't mortgage every single bit of my future, but starting things from scratch, putting my ideas in action, putting what's my real core politics, which is just basically how I live my life as far as my career and the material things about my life. Yeah, being in a situation where it's a struggle week to week and month to month, that makes it very hard to actually do anything but just kind of sit around and maybe tweet, because tweeting is free, but actually putting your ideas into action, that's going to take stability and time and resources that you're only going to really have if you've kind of built something for your life, and got that sort of stability, and have some savings, and have the ability to kind of have freer choices in life.
I would almost say it's not free though, because like you said, if you do value your time, you know, that is something.
Yeah, I guess you could be over there DIYing or something, and that is true. Like, I honestly, there's probably things that I could do, but sometimes when you're just, I don't know, depressed. I don't know if this is full on depression. I'm not saying clinical depression here, but you just want to get on the internet and kind of type away. And I think it doesn't, that kind of mindset doesn't lend itself to making things and doing things and making those initial investments, and to learn new skills and stuff. And I think that's a big, I will say, even for me, I'll identify myself, that's a big weakness for me, is I haven't really taken on too many new skills that don't too many new skills that are totally DIY, kind of cooking, crafting stuff. And I certainly could, and I certainly should. So I hopefully, I mean, I could get some inspired by our group and your podcast and everything. And
You got to step your game up, Penguin.
yeah, I gotta start planting. I gotta start
For real.
cooking up stuff. Yeah, for
Well,
sure.
like, I actually think it came up in a different conversation, like on here that I was on once. But we still need those people that do other things that maybe I don't want to do, to interpret all those documents and, whatever is going on in the world, because as much as I really don't pay attention to it these days, somebody's got to, and you still kind of generally need to know what's going on. How involved you want to get into it, is up to you, but not everybody does have time to be making their own butter, or
But it's a great
foraging
feeling. It's a great feeling to
mushrooms.
do this DIY stuff.
It
It's very
is.
mentally stimulating, and it would actually turn your life around. But you see a lot of people that actually get into this stuff are actually in a good place, in a good position, and they're taking on more hobbies and more hobbies, even more hobbies, and pretty soon they have too many they can deal with. But they're just so, get out and go. But it's hard when you don't have the inspiration and you just want to get on the twitter.com or whatever else you like to go on, or scroll through in Instagram, whatever these things that I don't have, but get on the twitter.com and just send tweet and retweet and everything. And it's cool. There's so much more than that. And I kind of want to get back into my 20s of just picking up a hobby,
Right. I just, hope nobody ever feels bad, because they have, like you said, like you haven't learned a new skill. It's still nothing to really feel bad about, but just something to feel extra good about if you do.
Yeah, but I think we
not
now know
knocking
that
anyone.
Yeah.
it does some. We now know, and this is going to sound totally like completely instrumental, like biohack or whatever. Like it does something to your brain to make stuff and to do stuff, and that's super important. And then if you can do it with other people, or you can exchange with other people, boom, that's another super mentally stimulating thing to do. And frankly, it's depressing to be in a world where you're not actually making things, or not actually making actual connections. And I think that's why people kind of just tell people kind of just feel like crap and just have to either medicate literally or medicate kind of figuratively with other things.
Yeah, I know for me, like I definitely go through ups and downs, with my, I still go through periods of depression, and I feel like, over the last few years I've kind of been more in tune with that cycle and kind of like what my body's going through. And I kind of just, I'm better about dealing with those times now, and kind of just like realizing that it'll pass, and kind of allowing myself, if I just like, okay, say I have a lot to get done, but sometimes your body's telling you that you need to just like take a break, and chill out and just ride it out. And it always passes, and I mean, sometimes social media can be a good thing because maybe you're depressed and it's an escape, and I think that that's still generally a healthy thing to escape to, as opposed to if you are using drugs or, something else more harmful to yourself to escape. There's, like I said, the kind of what we were talking about before, I think there's a difference between having a fun night doing some fun drugs with your friends, as opposed to, using drugs to escape feelings. So like on a scale, let's say social media, if you are depressed, it definitely could be worse things to do.
There's worse things to do, but also better things to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm no saint. I get sucked into it sometimes. I don't know. Just after a long day, just I want to sit down, put my feet up, and I fucking screw around on my phone for a minute. But
I think the thing is just I struggle to not feel guilty about taking that time, when everybody needs that time from time to time. But sometimes like I'll have to sit and be like, you're gonna sit down and fucking watch this show and not think about, X, Y, or Z, because your body's telling you that you need to just relax right now, and just
Yep.
kind of like I said, not feeling guilty for
Leisure
not
time.
doing something or taking that time for yourself, and
Yeah, I've been trying to be better about that too. I also have to like force myself to sit down and watch TV and be unproductive. I don't know if it's guilt really, but I feel agitated when I'm being unproductive. it's very
I,
hard for me to relax
I
for
feel
that
like for me,
reason.
there's a guilt part. I think just because, like I said, when I was in the worst of my addiction, I mean, I was barely a functioning member of society, and really that's only because work is the one thing I didn't really fuck up too bad, so I contribute in that way, but I didn't contribute to anything else, or expanding or doing anything or learning anything new, so I don't know, I feel like I'm making up for all this time sometimes, and I sometimes push myself too hard, and I'm sure there's a lot of other people that can relate to that.
Yes, I 100% relate to that.
Mhm.
I'm thinking I worked all day today, all week, and I'm probably working tomorrow because I'm a moron. And then me and my other residents and I made the suggestion because we've got 6 acres, 30 minutes up the road from here, and it was just my recent idea that we're going to clear that and turn that into another farm. And
Nice.
she's like, no, she's like, you're out of your
Oh.
mind. You have way too much stuff to do. Like,
Yeah, you're right.
she's like, you're gonna fucking kill yourself. Like, but that's just, I don't know. It's just I grind. But I've been better about it as I get older. But it's very
Yeah, I mean,
hard.
we have about 6 acres, and it's a lot to take care of. It definitely is. Sometimes, like, I have to focus myself and be like, "Stop scattering all your projects all over the property." We had a golf cart for a little while, but it needs a new battery, so it wasn't as bad. But now, like, walking and carrying feed buckets from, one end of the property to the other, it's like, okay, just localize all your projects. So,
Yeah, keep them all right here within
yeah.
walking distance. Yeah.
Getting
Yeah.
my she shed was a game changer. Every lady should have a she shed.
Shut up. I know that's on the list. I'm thinking about building. So I was going to get her a she shed, but then I was like, well, what if I just build a big ass A&S building, and
Mhm.
she can have her own side of the A&S building.
There you go.
Yeah. So I don't know. I've been debating on that, but I'm also trying to recoup some fucking heavy costs recently. So,
Yeah.
all right. So a theory I've been sort of going over in my head is I don't actually. It seems like there's very few women, and there's the joke, any anarchist woman on the internet is a federal agent.
Yeah.
And I often, I often make that same joke to residents. I'm like, she's the world's most dedicated Fed. She wins an award every year for it. Um, but so I'm starting to think though that like, and I don't know how I would ever figure this out, but I think there's actually way more women than we think there are, and there might even be a 50-50 split in
I
the
would buy
anarchist
that.
community.
I
Yeah.
would buy that. I would
I think the
believe
men are
in
louder
either
is
way.
what it is. Sorry, go ahead.
I think the men are maybe just in higher positions. I don't want to really use the word authority, but
Hmm.
influencing figures in the community, that there's definitely more men in positions like that, so that I guess would make them louder or more seen or more known.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Do you think men just sort of want clout and women don't really care? They just do their own thing?
Um,
It's
yeah, maybe.
it seems to me that a lot of women that I've known throughout my life are not big on attention. Like public attention. I don't know.
Yeah. I know it's kind of weird with me. Like, I don't know, sometimes this kind of like goes back to my addiction too. I just feel like I'm always like on one side of the pendulum or the other, but like both. I could always say, okay, I'm an egomaniac with an inferiority complex. And I feel like I'm an introvert that wants to be an extrovert. And I feel like I'm somebody who wants attention while simultaneously not wanting attention, and so I don't know, and like it's like that with so many areas of my life. So maybe this is just me and why I'm crazy and insane, but I feel there's always like those two sides that are kind of like battling each other, and so it makes me super indecisive.
You just don't know what to do with yourself.
Yeah, it takes me about 10 minutes to pick out some coffee in the coffee aisle. Trickles down.
I'm the opposite. I just, yep, this one, bye, gone.
Yeah. And it's funny because I hate shopping too, so maybe that's why. Just
Me too.
yeah.
I say women don't really want public attention, but there's like a million, like, what do you call them? I don't know, women on the internet doing videos and stuff. So maybe
I
I'm
think
entirely wrong about
TikToks.
that. Influencers? That was the
Yeah.
word. Influencers.
Influencers. Mhm.
Yeah. So maybe I'm entirely wrong, and it's just the women I've known personally. But I don't know. They don't seem to crave.
I mean, I think everybody wants attention. I think it just depends on what scale that is. I mean,
oh, of
do
course,
you
yeah.
want attention from your significant other?
Right.
Of course. Do you want
Yeah.
attention in your workplace? Do you want to be told you're doing a good job? Of
Mhm.
course. But, once you kind of get on that bigger platform, and I think a lot of women feel judged or have, insecurities about certain things.
Mhm.
And I feel like men maybe don't, I mean, there's a lot of men that do struggle with these same feelings, but I feel like when it comes to things like that, that's probably more geared towards women.
That makes sense, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because you guys, I think, or you ladies get judged way more, I think, physically than men do
Yeah.
about appearance and stuff. But so maybe that's a part of it. I don't know.
Yeah. Because, I mean, you look at a lot of those quote unquote influencers, I mean, like everybody nowadays has lip injections or, I don't know what else. I mean, this girl I work with pays like $80 every 2 weeks to get her eyelashes, like these fake eyelashes, like professionally put on. They look real, they look nice, but like I definitely don't care about shit like that anymore. It really didn't even
Yeah,
back
that's
then.
crazy.
So, yeah,
Filler gives you autoimmune disorders.
I'd buy that. Yeah. So I think it's just, different times
Yeah,
and
yeah. If you got some crazy long nails, then chances are that's a very good sign. I mean, it signals something. It signals what type of person you are, and we all have different personalities. There's certainly different types of men, all different types of women. So you're signaling something, but it's probably that you don't do a lot. You don't do very much, very rough with your hands. And so if you're aiming to live a certain lifestyle, that would be like a good signal or a bad signal. You know, what kind
Mhm.
of person you're looking to attract. I think ideally that's kind of what we do is like what kind of conversation are you willing to start with somebody. I mean, some people are more observant than others, but I mean that's it's certainly a sign. Yeah, I don't know why you'd spend that kind of money, but again, spending money on stuff like that is a type of lifestyle, and that probably influences the type of mate that she's looking for. But
Yeah.
I don't know how exactly you would signal maybe our political preferences other than something a little more overt, but certainly as far as is lifestyle is concerned, like you said, you may not be, maybe you didn't use this term, but very feminine or maybe like a girly girl,
Mhm.
something as far as your outward appearance. But I think if you might very well have the qualities that really suit the way you and Dak live. So and I'm sure you kind of you either purposely show something or people just notice it on you. So I guess we all live different ways. I think there are certain ways that are more or less, I don't know, amenable to our points of view and ways of thinking, obviously, and the way we deal with how we earn our living and what we use our resources for.
Yeah, it's like something you said, like how, like, I don't think you can really necessarily look at somebody and without talking to them and know where they stand politically, like you said, unless there's some just like glaring thing, but
I'm getting an
so
anarchy symbol tattooed on my forehead.
yeah, well, I have one on my arm, but but in general, I'm saying like most people, so I don't know, just why I kind of try not to make those judgments anymore because sometimes you catch yourself still making them, and a lot of times I'm surprised by once after having a conversation with them, and again being open-minded and listening to them, that even if they are not an anarchist, which usually in people you meet aren't, but they're still generally good people, and I don't think there's as big of a divide as the media or things led on to believe.
Well, before we wrap up here, is there anything else you want to add, being the second guest in our Women in Anarchism series?
I don't think so. Like I said, it just makes me feel real special that you had me back on for this, and I'm super excited to hear what all the other ladies that you have planned have to share.
Have you listened to Resonances yet?
No, and I honestly, I don't think I even knew that she did it because I have not listened to a podcast in like any podcast in probably at least like a month. I
Wow.
go
Busy,
through
busy.
like well, that, and just kind of go through like stages, like the times where I used to I've been going through some schedule and personal changes in my employment and everything, and kind of still adjusting to all of that in times where I would used to catch up on stuff. It has all just totally been shelved, but I am gonna listen to that tomorrow. I'm gonna make a reminder because
It's funny you say that. I don't know
just
if
love
it's
your
the
wife.
warmer. She's awesome. I don't. It's funny you say that because recently I've been listening to a lot less podcasts and more music. And part
Hmm.
of me, just now that you said that, I wonder if it's like the warmer weather. It's like it just got to be like 70s out, sun shining. I'm like, fucking tunes, just like jamming
Yeah.
out,
Hmm.
like I don't want to think about other stuff. I just want tunes, I don't know.
Right. No, it's like it's again like everything is like I don't know, feeling everything in life is just super cyclical. I feel like more and more I notice that. And like I will listen to tunes until I'm sick of it, for however long. And then I'll like cram as many podcasts in. That's all I'm listening
Mhm.
to is podcasts all day, like no music. And then I get burnout on podcasts, and again I just kind of accept it. It'll
I do the
get
same
better.
exact thing. I'm the
Hmm.
same way. I just go through really short phases though. It'll be like a month, and I'll listen to music, and then I'm like, and then boom, podcast for like 3 months, and then I get bored with that for a while, or I don't know.
I have a third phase where I just work in silence, and that's actually really nice too, to do that sometimes because
Sometimes being in
I
your
wish I
head,
could
yeah.
do that. I can't
oh
do
yeah.
anything in silence anymore. It's horrible. I have to be listening to some audio or something constantly. It's really bad, and I know that's not good for my brain. So I commend you on that. Maybe I
Oh.
can try that at some point. Maybe I can try meditating or something. I don't know.
I have been meditating more these last few years, so maybe that does play a difference, but there'd be a lot of times like I won't even notice that there isn't anything on, until I
Mhm.
realize that it's like 2 or 3 o'clock and I haven't turned anything on. I just, focused. I get hyper focused on things. I don't know. The more I've been friends with like Lily and stuff that she posts, Lily Forrester, the more I think I'm ADD and autistic.
Well, I mean, you're an anarchist, so I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
We all are. Uh, no, I did that today. I didn't listen to anything today. Um, it is nice every once in a while. You just like are totally into what you're doing at the moment and just like in your own head, and your brain will like without any other stimuli, it'll just start thinking about some wild stuff. You go off, your brain just goes off on a crazy tangents. I kind of like it, but
Yeah.
usually I'm working with power equipment, so I need like
Oh
earphones in
yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
So I might as well put podcast or music in, and just to block out the motor. But
Yeah.
um, well, yeah. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for
This was
having me.
awesome. We went through an hour and a half already, so
Awesome. Yeah, I thought for sure I wasn't going to be able to talk about myself for an hour and a half.
well, here you go. Who's your favorite woman anarchist?
A resonance, of course. It's a dumb question.
She is pretty awesome.
I wish you guys could just move to Florida and be my neighbors.
We are never moving to Florida.
I
You
didn't
should
think
move. You
so.
guys should move here.
Well, you'd have to convince Dag, and he would say the same thing you did. So
Yeah.
Both top tier states, but
yeah.
I don't know weather wise. Florida is just. I've been in the muggy all my life, and I can imagine worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, yeah, great podcast. Great talking to you. Glad you came on.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, wow,
Always a pleasure.
I think I might be. I think I might be closer to Sec than you are.
I was gonna ask
Probably
where
quite a
you
bit.
were. I don't know if you ever say.
East Coast.
Okay.
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
North
so
or
I'm like
south of
straight.
the Carolinas?
I am just barely north of the North Carolina border.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Penguin, you got to come
it gets
down
hot there.
this fall when we
I
do
need
our
I
thing
need
here.
I need a point west and just drive straight to Bristol, I guess is how you get there. I don't know.
Yeah, do it. Like things have been crazy, so we didn't really get a chance to plan a Bro Grow too. So we're relying on your next Illuminati event to get together with y'all. So
Yeah, and Penguin's got to come this year. That'll
yes.
be good.
I need to get a bigger motorcycle. I could ride that thing all the way there, and that'd be great.
That's an iron butt ride. Just
Yeah.
rent a car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually,
I've ridden
you're right.
a
I'm not gonna get one of
motorcycle
those
that
joints.
fast. You will not be able to walk when you get here.
Take a train.
Yeah.
Right. There you go.
Take a train
or a
okay.
bus or something. But yeah, no, we should all get together again. So that'll be good.
Definitely.
Well, plug your stuff.
All right. You can follow me on Twitter at _Agorist. You can follow our show, Me and Resonances, the Let's Make Some Shit podcast. That is on Anchor and Spotify, and you can follow us on Twitter at Let's Make Some SHH. I have an Etsy shop called The Willow's Gift, where you can find some herbal medicine, custom portraits, and some other stuff that I make. And check out Dag's site, agoristacres.com, for all your seed needs. Yeah, I think that's it.
I think there's still a code too. If you do Agora 10, you save 10%.
All right, there you go. Yep.
Yeah. Roll right on. This was a blast. Thanks for coming on. I'm gonna go pass out, I think, but we'll everybody be excellent to each other, and we will see you all next time. Go check out Ray's Twitter and her Etsy shop and her podcast, obviously. And Penguin, you got any closing thoughts?
No.
All right. Peace, y'all.
Thank you.
All right. Ciao.
Later.
Bye.